does it mean for something to be made for the modern audience? Well, if you've been in this culture war since about 2014 and onward, you probably got a pretty good idea of what it means. It means taking stories that are beloved by fans the world over, sometimes decades upon decades old, and repurposing and reimagining them into new and improved versions more palatable to today's social sensibilities, often coming with race-swapped or gender-swapped characters, or new, more progressive ideologies shoved into them. A lot of times, the male titular characters are usurped by inferior female versions that the writers so desperately want you to believe are the superior ones, the new up-and-coming ones that will define generations moving forward. And Scott Pilgrim Takes Off is the most recent adaptation to suffer from this. Welcome back to Words of Paradise. I'm your host, Leon Idle, and we're going to get into the response to the new Scott Pilgrim anime, as they're calling it on Netflix. Spoiler alert, it isn't an anime, where they have taken one of the most beloved franchise of the early aughts and 2010s and ran it into the ground with modern ideology. So let's get into some of these articles, as well as a tweet by Vex Electronica. Before we do, hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to get to the 2,000 subscriber mark before the end of the year, and with just over 200 to go, we're looking like we can actually do it. But enough about that, let's get into what Vex has to say about this adaptation. Fans of the Scott Pilgrim books and 2010 film will then skip Netflix's modern adaptation, Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. Scott gets killed off in the first episode, and it becomes a reimagining with Ramona facing off against her exes. Don't recommend, 2 out of 10. And look at this art here. Look, it's Scott. It's gotta be about Scott. It's called Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. He's on the cover. It's him fighting against, Matthew Patel. No, wrong. He dies, like says, dies in the first episode, and it becomes all about Ramona. Because that's what individuals want. That's what people really want, is to see something titled Scott Pilgrim not be about Scott Pilgrim. Are we getting some He-Man vibes from this? Isn't that what happened with the most recent He-Man Netflix adaptation? Look, I get it. You wanna agendify and liberal and progressive up Scott Pilgrim. You didn't need to. Scott Pilgrim was already incredibly liberal and progressive, but by today's standards, it may as well be a dog whistle for Donald Trump. I mean, well, it had openly gay characters. That was pretty progressive. It had Ramona. At one point, she was in a bi-curious relationship. She was also in a polyamorous relationship, more or less, because she was with those twins. Those two twins who she was involved with romantically. It's got a bunch of very pro-gay humor, a lot of video game stuff, which the video game subculture has a pretty left and progressive lean. Why go out and change it to make it even more feminist driven? Your main character was a feminist girl, or your main love interest, I should say, was a pink-haired feminist girl boss that, frankly, everyone fell in love with. But that's not good enough now. They have to take it a step further. Vex is exactly right, because all the articles, for some reason, tend to agree with her, but they laud it. They call it a good thing. I mean, look at some of this. Scott Pilgrim Takes Off is the progressive Netflix anime that rights the comic series' biggest wrongs. The comic series was written between 2004 and 2010. What do you mean it rights the wrongs? Again, it was very progressive for its time, and people do still love it. Tell me what wrongs they could have righted. You're telling me that taking the main male character and killing him off so that you can have Ramona be the star, was there a problem with Scott Pilgrim being, the main character? Was it wrong for that to be the case? Is it righting the wrong of a male character being the star of a story? I mean, it's not like we never had female characters before. It's instances like this where I actually do want to use the word woke. I mean, anyone that knows anything about me knows I really don't like that word. It's become a generic catch-all term for anything you don't like in movies when it comes to, black people or women or whatnot. Like, look, hey, there's some games and movies and comic books and TV shows out there. They're not woke. Even The Marvels wasn't woke. It still sucked, but it didn't have a whole lot of wokeness to it, minus some one-off lines about being anti-fracking. Like, I truly don't get it, but woke is the best word to use in situations like this. They're also calling it an anime, when let's be real, just because it's got this semi-wannabe Asian art style doesn't make it an anime. But there are article after article like, yeah, this is tech radar, but what about Polygon? Scott Pilgrim Takes Off delivers an all-time great bait and switch. Well, what is that bait and switch? Killing off Scott and making Ramona the main character, because when you're watching this, you're probably watching for Scott. You want to watch Scott Pilgrim. You grew up reading those books. You saw the movie. You were probably one of the 10 people like me that saw it in theaters way back in the day and grew up to love it. And yeah, they kill him off and have Ramona be the main character. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with Ramona. She's an awesome character, but maybe they should have marketed it as such. You go into this expecting Scott Pilgrim. That's what it was marketed as. And you get a feminist girl boss TV show where she doesn't even fight her exes. She builds bridges with them and mends the wounds and she fixes them. It's the classic "I can fix him" meme. It's quite baffling what they're doing here, because no one wants to see these evil exes. They're called the evil exes. No one wants to see them be redeemed. People want to see the fight. It's based off video game lore. There's a reason there's such a video gamey aspect to the movie and the comic series, because that's what it meant. And video games, most of them, got a lot of fighting in them. You don't see Mario run around and making peace with the Goombas and, going through the Mushroom Kingdom singing whatever Italian version of Kumbaya they have, but that's what you're going to get with this new Netflix version. How can anyone that's actually a fan of Scott Pilgrim take this seriously? And in a way, I actually get how people can take it seriously, because again, Scott Pilgrim was very progressive. So now you've got those individuals that were progressive from 2004 to 2010, and a lot of them have probably gotten, just obsessed with this new progressive cult, and so they think pushing it even further is actually good. To hell with the original version they grew up loving. Kind of like the Harry Potter effect. People nowadays, they can't even fathom reading Harry Potter because it's so just transphobic and awful, despite the fact that the stories hold up. They're pretty great. Just because you don't like the author because you accuse her of doing things and saying things she never actually did or said, mind you. But whatever. You went ahead and you let your interpretation of the author ruin the past work for you when there is nothing wrong with the past work. What about this one from Kotaku here? Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, the Kotaku review. Let's get it out of the way. This is not a spoiler-free review of Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. Netflix anime, there's that word again, anime. These individuals don't know what anime actually is. Take on Brian Lee O'Malley's video game reference-ridden romantic comedy graphic novels and their subsequent live-action movie adaptation. It's impossible to talk about while tiptoeing around specifics. I'm not going to tell you how it all ends, but I do have to set the stage in a way that will give away a great moment in the first episode if I'm going to talk about this show with any sort of convention. You want to know what that great moment is? The moment where Scott dies. The moment where they flip the script on its head, and they make Ramona the main character. Like, this is, you're following Ramona making peace with her evil exes. And I know I sound like I'm repeating myself, but that's because that's what all these articles are doing. All these articles just repeating how amazing it is that Ramona is now the main character, that, it's so brave, it's so stunning. I hate it when people say, it's stunning and brave. That joke was old by 2017, but for some reason, these people are treating it like it's fresh, like this is something new and original that hasn't been done a million times. By focusing on Ramona and putting Scott on the back burner, Scott Pilgrim Takes Off critically re-examines the foundation it was built on nearly 20 years ago with the first book. Love is hard, and it's only natural that even if we cared for someone at one point, we might start to resent them when things end. There are exceptions, of course, but more often than not, people who hurt us and the people who we hurt aren't malicious. They're flawed people just like us trying to figure it all out. Is that what you want to watch? Is that what Scott Pilgrim fans are looking for? Some deep, romantic, introspective spectacle? Like, no! We're here for the video gamey references and the action, and if there is some interesting, nifty underlying meanings, then by all means, put them in there. But that's not why people are watching it. If they get that out of it as a result, then go for it. Good. I like it when people read into things, when they read into their games, when they read into their movies, their TV shows, and they get these deeper meanings. I mean, there's a reason you can find 4-hour-long analysis videos about the meaning of Return of the Jedi on YouTube, because people do have passions for these. But those oftentimes are born naturally from an individual getting something that may have been there sort of under the surface, but was never expounded upon. But here, you're setting the stage for that to be the reason people watch it. Like, hey, make sure you look for this, when it's not going to affect everyone in that emotional way. You're effectively taking away whatever emotional resonance could have happened with the viewer and telling them this is how you need to experience it, and it's a joke. What about for variety? Netflix's Scott Pilgrim anime series puts a fresh, self-aware spin on the cult classic. Yeah, because self-aware is what we want in today's TV as well. I remember another TV show, another animated TV show relatively recently that was self-aware. Right, Velma. And how well did Velma do? Velma was the butt of every joke on the internet early on in the year this year, and for good reason. It was a travesty of a TV show, and there was no escaping it. Mindy Kaling's net worth probably dropped just from all the time she was dragged on Twitter for about 3 months straight. And the self-aware aspect only works when you're criticizing things that deserve to be criticized because they think that they're just the God's gift or the greatest thing to happen to TV show. When South Park does the Panderverse, yeah, that's self-aware in terms of it being culturally aware, but Disney is not self-aware. Kathleen Kennedy is not self-aware. South Park is self-aware of how absolutely out there all this has gotten, and for some reason this is being lauded as if it's new and original. It hasn't been original since Ghostbusters 2016, and I know in 2023 talking about Ghostbusters 2016 is not only beating a dead horse, but it's beating a dead horse's corpse and the ghost along with it. You're salting and burning the bones of this dead horse to get rid of its spirit supernatural style. It is mind-blowing that we have to bring up Ghostbusters 2016, but guys, it's been almost 10 years at this point. There's gotta be a time when you realize this isn't new, this isn't fresh, and it's not what the fans are asking for. I mean, if you look at Twitter, if you go and you see Scott Pilgrim is trending, and almost no one, or it was trending, it might not be anymore. Well, either way, oh, here it is, yeah, perfect. Almost no one has anything positive to say about it. Scott Pilgrim takes off as total shit, and Scott Pilgrim in name only. It's really Ramona Flowers' show, and Scott disappears in episode 1. This is Kevin Smith's He-Man all over again. Netflix is gonna Netflix. Get this shit out of my sight. Let's see. The whole Todd arc and Scott Pilgrim takes off looks like this. I'm not sure what that's a reference to. We got Vex Electronica's thoughts again, which I shared earlier. Finished the first episode, so yeah, these people might, I don't know if they enjoyed it or not. Literally turned him into a sad, sopping wet cat in the rain. Are you fucking kidding me? So yeah, there we go. It sounds to me like they're pretty upset about that. No one is enjoying this aside from, Rilo Ken. So maybe some Raylos are actually enjoying this. The type of individuals that were so cringy and creepy that they shipped, Ray Palpatine with a genocidal murderer of the Star Wars sequel trilogy. But though that's not a big enough market for you to sell your program. Most people don't actually hold thought processes and beliefs like this. This show is made for Twitter. Most of Twitter isn't real, and if they were, we would see a whole lot more of them having these sorts of opinions in real life. But how many people do you know like this in real life? Not many. We see them as jokes on libs at TikTok or something, but if you were just to go to the mall or McDonald's or go out to the park or anything, do you actually see these people? No, because they don't exist. It's a very niche market that doesn't actually have appeal in the long run, so why did they make this? Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm the biggest Scott Pilgrim fan in the world. To be fair, I mean, I like the movie and I like the little bits I've read of the books, but I haven't even read every issue of the books. That being said, I don't want this to fail for fans of Scott Pilgrim, people that did grow up loving this. I know if something like this happened to Dragon Ball Z, it would destroy me. It already has happened to Star Wars, something else that I grew up adoring. It happened to Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2. Yeah, it kills me when this happens to franchises I love, so I don't want to see it happen to franchises that other individuals love. I don't like seeing them take popular IPs that have had fans for almost 20 years at this point, since the books did start coming out in 2004, and use that IP as a way to just shove ham-fisted political and social messages into them and then claim that you're the bigot when you don't like that your favorite thing was messed with. But that's what we keep getting. So yeah, while I'm not the biggest Scott Pilgrim fan in the world, I enjoy it for what it is. I'm sure there's some people out there that love Scott Pilgrim like I love Dragon Ball Z, and they are livid at this, and they should be. How do you stop this when it's on Netflix, aside from canceling Netflix and, speaking with your wallet? But do they know you're canceling because of Scott Pilgrim? It's not like the box office. It's not like the Marvels where you can just go or more than that, where you can not go and you can go spend your money elsewhere or not spend it at all, and they can see, oh, this exact movie lost $500 million. Maybe we shouldn't make movies like this anymore. That's a good way to do it. Not spending your money at the box office shows that this particular product wasn't for the massive majority of the audience. You can't do that with streaming shows, so it comes down to making videos like this, making videos on the internet, and pleading with these idiots up top to stop pandering and stop with the identity politics and just give us what we want. But those are just my opinions. Let me know yours in the comments down below, or let me know on X, where you can find me at BoltTheWord. And please do subscribe. I am a nerdy news channel. I cover nerdy news every day. Not always about Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, or Netflix, or anything to that effect, but video games, anime, movies, music. You can find me on Instagram at wordsofparadise_Leon. And remember, it is all here in the nerdosphere, and this has been Words of Paradise.